Good day, everybody, and happy Saturday. Gloria here, and I am from Powerful Potential and Purpose. Oh, why doesn't it say desire to inspire? Well, we're still going to inspire you today, but this is a focus on helping you reach your potential. I'm an author, an intuitive life coach, an inspirational speaker, and I am really here to help you feel your magnificent and raise your potential and bring it out into the world. And that brings me to why I'm really here, because I have a special guest today. And I want to tell you first a little bit, not about her, but why I'm working with her and 12 other women. Perhaps you've heard. Well, we're co-authoring a book. And I have to tell you, this experience has brought more perspective to me on people, their lives, and walking in their shoes and understanding better than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't even something I thought. But every time I go into these stories, and I put myself in there with them and I help them with their creative writing. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm walking in their path. I'm walking with them. I'm feeling their emotion, their pain, their magic, all these things, right? And I'm gaining new perspective. So today, synchronistically, of course, and I love synchrony, the daily word that Unity Church posted came up with the word perspective. And I want to read that to you this morning. And if you're on live, come on and say hello. And if you drop in later, put replay. Oh, and remember, if you have questions, we will totally come back and answer them. Okay, so perspective, it says. My perspective on the world is shaped by my upbringing, culture, lifestyle, and belief systems, but I also have the power to change my views. I can become more open to new ideas and beliefs and experience new people and adventures which bless me in ways that are unknown to me. You know, how often have things happened in your life where you got to understand things from a whole new perspective? Well, my special guest is going to talk to you about that today. So, without any further ado, I am going to bring on this wonderful woman who is a midlife transition coach. Welcome, Christine Tattaglio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did I say your name correctly, your last name?
It's Catoggio, but you wouldn't be the first.
I should know that. I'm Italian. I should know that. Well, first, I want to thank you for coming on, okay, for being authentic and real in your story, and, you know, for having the courage, I should say, to be brave and bold and to share that, because it's not always easy, is it?
No, not at all. And thank you so much for having me. And it's been such a pleasure working on that story and for your support throughout it, because you really helped me develop and draw out things that have been kind of hidden away.
Well, I'm glad I could do that for you and others. And, you know, we do hide. We all hide. We want to project things. We want to see perspective from only our viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And when we have somebody that, and I know I've had coaches like this too, and writing coaches like this as well, when we can drop into the essence, the authenticity of our life experience, okay, who we really are, we all change. We all gain insight. And that in itself is a miracle, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the experiences that we go through that really, they're our stepping stones to who we're meant to be.
Absolutely. And so we're going to begin this morning with getting out of our comfort zone, okay? Because we both are out of our comfort zone right now, believe it or not. You know, people often say to me, "Oh, Gloria, you make it look so easy," but we know better, Christine, don't we?
Yes.
Okay. And a comfort zone is where we want to stay. It's where, you know, we think this is safe and this is where I need to be. And that's okay. That's your perspective. That's okay. However, getting out of that comfort zone, stretching, as I say, 5% of the time can actually shift, change, and transform your life. What do you think about that, Christine?
Oh, totally. And actually, it's our comfort zone. Staying in our comfort zone keeps us from growing, because we really need to step out and have new experiences and challenge ourselves, because that's really how we grow and learn new things.
Absolutely. Now, for me personally, although I love to learn all the time, Christine, I think some of my biggest challenges didn't come from working with mentors and coaches. My biggest challenges came from life.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Totally. life experiences really teach us. They're the lessons. I feel they're the lessons that we need to learn. And in many cases, that's why we have to keep repeating those lessons, because we don't learn them. But that really is where we learn about who we are and our purpose. And it's really where we discover what we're here for.
I agree. And some of our people out there are actually commenting already. So good morning, Brenda. And Brenda's like, yes, so true. So thank you for commenting. So remember, we love when you share. We love your questions. We love your comments. And if you're feeling like life is calling you to be more, well, this is what our conversation's about today. Now, in our book, Women Standing Strong Together, which releases on December 29th, Christine is one of our co-authors. And we're not going to tell you everything that happens in that story that she shared, right? But we are going to tell you some of the things she went through that brought her to the place she is today. And sometimes, Christine, do you feel just before these life events happen that maybe we already knew there was something else calling us, but we didn't pay attention?
Totally. And that was part of my experience after, and I don't want to give my story away, but after the actual major event that precipitated my healing process, I found that I was reevaluating my part in it, my responsibility. What did I not notice? What didn't I see? We always have a tendency to put blame on ourselves. I've referenced it as the cheater's spouse, the last to know. Everyone else sees it but us. And it takes a while for things to really surface and for us to realize that we did play a part. Even if we didn't have involvement in the actual event, we had some part in it by the way we dealt with the situations precipitating it, by maybe for me, in my case, it was really more about being so immersed in my life, so to speak, raising my children, doing my own thing, that I really didn't notice what was going on. Indirectly, I did, but it wasn't until everything came to fruition where I was like, how did I not see that?
Yeah, I think that happens for a lot of us. I saw something come up on Facebook the other day that similar to what you just said. We align and attract all our life situations, even if we don't think we do. On some level, we do. And I can relate to that because while you're talking, I can think of like 5 different situations just at the top of my hat where I'm like, yes, I played a part in that. I played a part in that too. And it could even be when you're putting out even positive affirmations about things, right? That a piece comes into your life that creates the chaos to get rid of the things that maybe you didn't pay attention to. Do you agree with that, Christine?
Oh, totally. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Because we don't realize that we are responsible, as you said. We have some responsibility. And I think that is a huge part in our recovery from the experience, is accepting that we had a role in it and identifying what that role is and moving forward from it.
And I find we all have a different state of consciousness. Like you're doing your thing in your life. You're married 25 years. You're busy doing the mom role, the kids, all that. Your partner's doing something else. There could be stresses. There could be all these things going on, but you're in one consciousness level while somebody else in your life is in another one doing what they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's, where communication is such a huge part, especially in all relationships, not just, in a marriage, but being able to be totally open and frank with each other and really creating the space to include each other in what it is that we're going through. And I think that was part of what might have been lacking in some regard. In my situation, my husband at the time, I always say, we were always on the same train track, and somehow he veered off the track. But in retrospect, I guess I did too.
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe I just got an insight. Maybe you were both on the same train track, but you're going this way, he's going this way, and then boom.
exactly. So that's why I say, we really have to get a perspective on what really happened.
Mhm.
I could blame him till the cows come home. Excuse me, but it wasn't all him.
Mhm.
It wasn't all him. I had to
It
accept
never is. Yeah.
responsibility.
Well, good for you, because that's not an easy thing for anybody to do. We talk about communicating honestly or authentically, but I don't think we really understand that, because sometimes we're afraid to. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to lose the relationship, or we don't understand where they're coming from when they're trying. So I remember 23 years ago, the man that became my husband at that time, on our second date, he said, I would love to do relationship counseling to have a healthy relationship. And I thought, oh my gosh. So that was amazing. And we found an amazing therapist. They did something called Imago Therapy. I'm going to put that name up here because I know a lot of people have asked me about it. Imago Therapy. There's actually a book as well about it for those of you that may be interested, calling Getting the Love You Want and Keeping It by Harville Hendrix. Well, Imago therapists are rare out there, but if you can find a good one, holy cow, I got to tell you, Christine, he and I learned how to listen. It's not about speaking, it's about listening. Communicating authentically is giving the person the space to feel safe. Now, we went through this process for 4 years before we decided to get married, where most people jump into relationships sooner,
Right.
What it brought for us, Christine, and maybe you can talk about this too as a result of, your situation, had you had this. I remember one day we were about 2 years into this process. That's how long it took, because we really had to learn how to speak in a way that people understand us, how to listen clearly to our partners, how to allow ourselves to become vulnerable so that we can truly be authentic and not be afraid they're going to leave us.
Right.
That's a big fear, don't you think?
Yes. And I also think it's imperative, especially today with the the way we are all so busy and preoccupied, that we have to learn how to be present in a relationship. Not just sitting on the couch watching a movie while we're both trolling through our phones, but to actually be present and be able to share.
Right. So what I'm going to put out there to all of you when you pick up Standing Strong with Women together is to listen, to communicate, to listen authentically, because here's what I learned with Imago Therapy. One day she said, Gloria, we're gonna sit on the floor with a bunch of pillows, and you're gonna put your back up against the wall. And then I'm gonna put a bunch of pillows through your legs so that your partner can sit there with his back towards your chest. And I'm gonna talk to him, and you're just going to be quiet and listen. And so often, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, that people will judge us based on our conversations, on our life experiences. But when we're quiet and we just listen, boy, can we learn so much about that person. So if you had had that experience in your life, how do you think it might have changed the outcome of the relationship?
Oh my gosh. One, I'd probably still be married because I did have a very good, strong marriage to that point. And, it was very hard for me to understand what he was dealing with, because he didn't share his feelings. He shut down. And I was trying to keep everything together. Keep the kids together, pay the bills. How is this going to work? What is this going to look like? And he just really kind of shut down and got in a shell. And so I had no idea what he was feeling or what he was thinking about, nor did he know what I was feeling. So,
Right.
So I think that that would have definitely probably have saved our marriage.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we create these compartments, these cages, these own prisons of our
Mhm.
own life.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we decide to own responsibility for that, we come out of that prison, don't we?
Yes, definitely.
And
Definitely.
and so when that happens and you own that responsibility, can you tell our audience first, when did you realize you had to own responsibility?
Oh my gosh. It was really early on. And here's something interesting I was thinking about this morning, preparing for our interview. I had a good friend of mine that I was able to talk to about what I was going through. And she had been through something similar. So she was able to relate and support me. And I remember saying to her, I don't know how I'm going to handle all of this.
Yeah,
And her response was, you've been doing it all along. You just never realized it.
exactly.
And so that was a big aha for me that I had been handling quite a bit and I had been carrying the ball, keeping us together and uh, prior to the events. And I was like, wow, I am capable. So that really helped me start to uh, pull my bootstraps up, or as they say all the time, put my big girl panties on and start really reflecting on what I needed to do to move forward.
Hmm. Now, I remember when I was working with you on the story and I was putting myself in the car with you, with your husband,
Mm-hmm.
and I was feeling, that energy that was between the two of you. And then I remember as the story went on, when you had to go home by yourself and the pain that you went through, okay, the depression you went through. And even you mentioned to me in a chat how people judged you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk to our audience about that because when we're going through major life changes, and sometimes people, it's like that thing you hear it all the time. You don't know what somebody's going through. And so very often people will come out and attack people, say things that they don't understand, bring things up from the past, whatever, and you're going through all this internal conflict. And then all of a sudden you're finding people are leaving your life. Tell our
Mm.
audience what that experience was like for you.
I believe I even mentioned this in the story. I felt like I had a scarlet letter on my chest. I was afraid to walk out the front door. It was a very publicized situation in a small town. I was involved in a small circle. My children were in private school, so everyone knew everyone's business and what was happening. And little by little, I started realizing I wasn't getting the invitations to certain things that were happening. I would walk in the room and I would see, the whispering stop. So I really did feel like I I was the one who had committed the crime. I was the one, and that was really hard to deal with because
Mm,
aside from everything else, the pain and all the other emotions that I was dealing with, the fact that I lost my what I thought was a support system.
mhm,
And ultimately when I look back, I realize it was not a true support system.
mhm.
It was a facade. And little by little, everyone fell aside and the right people did show up in my life. But I had this stigma. I felt like I had the stigma as though I was the one who had done this. And there again, it took a number of people really, really getting through to me that
Mhm.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Wasn't me.
It reminds me of a situation years ago. I used to be a massage therapist and have a healing center. And there was a woman that came to me to have work done on her jaw. Okay. She had a doctor's prescription for that, and she'd come every week. And I knew little things about what I needed to help her with, right? I didn't know her life. And one day after she left for her appointment, one of our other colleagues who brought in his receptionist, she, attacked me and said, in a very wicked voice, "Do you know who you're working on?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I know her." "No, but have you read the newspapers?" And I don't read newspaper. She goes, "Well, have you watched the news?" I'm like, "No, because I don't want to get involved in the perspective, as we were talking before in the beginning, if you just came on, the perspective of other people's opinions, thoughts, and ideas, because they don't know the whole truth."
Right.
And here's what happened in a short story, Christine, and you probably can relate to this on some level. This woman then began to tell me what she thought this woman did based on the opinions and the news. She said to me, "Do you know she killed her baby?" And what happens when we hear things like that? But in that split moment when I felt like, it came into my heart space. And I remembered a conversation years ago when I was 12 with a priest who said every single person is brought into our lives for a purpose. And that purpose is not to judge them. It's to learn how to love more unconditionally so they too can heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden that came into my heart. And I remember saying to this lady, "And who made you judge?" And
Yes.
God.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Totally relate to that. I totally relate because I so felt that I was being judged, and it was a very dark place to be in because I was trying to maintain everything that I needed to maintain for me, heal me, keep the roof over my head, be sure my girls were okay, take care of all of that. And very much like you said, I'm like, well, who are they to judge me? Every single one of them, I'm sure, has some skeleton in their closet, and I'm not about to dig up and find dirt on them. So
No.
why would they find such, I don't want to say pleasure, because I'm not sure that's what it was. I think it was just judgment. I think
Well,
it was.
here's what happened to this woman, okay? Because she did share with me a couple of weeks later. She said, "I need to tell you about me." And I said, "Well, you've told me what I need to know." She says, "Well,
Mhm.
you're probably going to hear anyway." And I said, "I'm really glad my mother taught me, believe nothing of what you hear and half of what you see."
Mhm.
Because here's what happened to her over the course of 7 months while I was working on her. Her neighbors would peek through the curtains every time she'd come home and then hide. Friends
Mhm.
of hers, these were friends of hers. Their children used to play together. They no longer wanted anything to do with her, and she had another child. Her and her husband served in the military their whole life, and so did their parents. Okay? They gave to this country. They adopted those two children, went through hell and high water and a lot of money to get two children. Now, your perspective right now, they're serving our country. You would think they stand in good integrity. They couldn't have their own kids. They wanted to have some. They adopted at different times two Korean children. So what does that tell you about these two people? You have one perspective, right? But now, because this young child dies, everybody assumes she did something wrong. Now, here's why. Listening to what other people say, like Mama said, believe nothing of what you hear. This was one of the greatest lessons that I learned from this woman.
Mhm.
Every news report, every TV report convicted her before she was on trial.
Mhm.
She lost all her friends, she lost her baby, and eventually her husband got so brainwashed he started to doubt what the truth was.
Mhm.
They took her second child away in custody as she's going through all this because they didn't trust her. Can you relate to any of this stuff
Oh
yet?
my
Like what
gosh.
people do?
Wow. Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah.
Now, when the testimonies came, people said, "We heard her yell at her child." How many parents out there have ever yelled at their child? Let's be honest, right? She yelled at her child to come in. The child was in the backyard, in a fenced in backyard. "Come in for dinner." Now, you were talking about raising your kids and all the things you had to do. How many times did you get frustrated with your own children?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Many.
Right? Did you ever raise your voice?
Yes. And occasionally my hands too, because back in the day it was okay to paddle them.
Exactly. And so she yelled at him 3 times to come in for dinner because he wasn't listening. On the 4th time, he came running. He was 2 or 3 years old, I believe. Did you ever have one of your child's fall?
Yes.
My son used to fall constantly, and even down steps when he was trying to learn how to go up steps. And he always had this black and blue in the middle of his forehead with this bump. And I used to be devastated to take him to the pediatrician thinking they're going to think I beat my kid when I never laid a hand on him. Right? Right? So her baby began, her young boy began to run. And do you have a patio or ever have a patio? Anybody where there's a little lip? He tripped on that lip and hit his head on the concrete patio.
Ooh.
And he died.
Oh my gosh, what a heartbreak. Oh.
So she was convicted because of what people heard, not what they saw.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the beauty behind this, though, Christine, and I think that you can relate to this too, because every experience changes us in life. She said to me on the day before she had to go to prison, I want to thank you. And I thought, why? And she said, because you created a space for me to heal. And you just talked about that healing process. And I thought, She said, I never heard about angels. I never really learned about God or any of that. And you had all these cool books in your waiting room. And it gave me hope. And I went, wow. She said, so now I can go into prison and tell other women about angels and hope. That's amazing, don't you think?
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Wow. That is incredible. And I think, that is one of the things we eventually learn when we can overcome the judgment and start to really evaluate who we are at our core. And I think I mentioned that part to you about the reawakening in our soul energy, really about getting back to the core of who we are. And I think these experiences really force us indirectly to go there, because I know through my own experience, that's what I learned. I didn't know who I was. I was busy being for everyone else.
Exactly.
And so that getting to the core and learning who we are and what our purpose is and what we're really here for is a huge, I don't want to say plus, but it is a plus, but it's probably one of the main reasons that we have the experience.
So would you change this experience in your life if you could?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Well, in retrospect, like we talked about, as far as the relationship, I probably would be more present and more mindful about what was happening. The experience itself, I think, has taught me so much, not just when it happened, but in the course of me digging myself out of the mess that I was in, physically, mentally, emotionally. In that part of it, I don't think I would change the experience, because I would never have gotten where I am today. I would have never learned who I am and what I need. And I would have never learned to take care of me first. I think that's a huge puzzle piece, and I think so many women deal with that. I say it with my clients all the time. We're just so busy satisfying and pleasing everyone else that we really don't take care of us. And it's not selfish. It's
I agree.
Yeah, it needs to be a
Necessary.
priority. Yeah, definitely.
Necessary. And do you feel, because I know I went through this too, where I had to learn how to take care of myself, because it was taught to some of us that it was selfish or self-centered, but self-centered is coming inside of yourself. And when you do that, you get to see perspective again differently on how you would do things.
Yeah, totally. And I think, it changes our perspective on life.
Mm-hmm.
Not just about us, but on there again on our relationships, how we deal with other people, whether or not we judge. It teaches you, what it feels like, so you're not as likely to do it to someone else. And you
Exactly.
also know what the pain feels like, so you can help, as you and I both do in our line of work, is, we can help other women going through the same experience or similar, because we understand their pain. We understand what it takes to get through it. I always say through is the optimal word. We have to get through it, get from
Mhm.
where we are to where we need
Do
to
it
be.
and rise up.
Yes, and rise up. Hmm.
So if you just joined us, well, this is our author spotlight for Women Standing Strong, a co-authored book by 12 amazing, brave, and courageous women that will be released on December 29th. So we'll mark that calendar. And Christine Catoggio she is a midlife transition coach. She is one of our co-authors, and she has a profound story. She's only giving you little tidbits. And it is about perspective, like we're sharing here today, because nobody knows what you're walking through in life. And Christine, I want to thank you for one, taking the time to be here today. But more than anything, I want to thank you for your courageousness, because communicating our authentic stories, surrendering to that place is scary. And if people don't know that, let me tell you, gals and guys out there, every one of our authors, including myself, went through these feelings and emotions. Do I say that? Do I tell people, oh my God, is this too much? Oh, what, and then when I'm reading it, I'm trying to help people sometimes get more into it because they are afraid to speak authentically and share. But you know what I learned, Christine?
What's that?
I learned that in being courageous, you meet some of the most amazing people in your life. And so I am honored, to work with you and all these women. And I know that every story is going to touch somebody on some level and provide, even if it's just one person, right, that reads your story, provides a new perspective, a new look in life, and it begins to help them start to trust their own journey. Like you were saying, if only we had paid attention, if
Right.
only we had listened, if only we had taken responsibility, right?
Yes, yes, totally. Well, I want to thank you for giving us the platform and giving us the opportunity, because as you mentioned, every single one of these authors has incredible stories, and the book is going to be amazing. I'm excited for it to come out, and I think we can really affect and help a lot of women, and not just women. I think
Men
men will
too.
really gain a lot from our stories too, because they'll be able to look at things through our perspective.
Absolutely. And a couple of the book ambassadors, the people who want to read our manuscript and do reviews, I actually have a few males that can relate to some of these things, and they are excited to read it for themselves, to share their life kind of in relationship to it, and probably be in the next book out there. Who knows,
You
right?
never know.
So, Christine, what was the greatest outcome from this journey that you've gone on?
Oh gosh, I am going to default to perspective. I really am, because I really think that's a perfect word for today. Um, because how we deal with the experience and what we learn from it and how we get through it is really because of the perspective that we have on it. If we aren't courageous enough to deal with our part in it and look at it from the right perspective, so to speak, then we will never really heal from it. So I
Absolutely.
really think it's all about the perspective. Perfect word.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Daily Word, for giving us that
Yes.
today. It is a perfect word. And just to complete the story about the woman that I worked on, if anybody's wondering, she shared what gifts she got out of that.
Mm.
And I shared with her and thanked her. And she says, "What are you thanking me for?" I said, "Because you taught me unconditional love.
Mm.
And I think that's a big part of your story and the other women's as well, because we can be like those neighbors peeking through the curtains. We can be the one chit-chatting behind the backs and turning people against each other. But until we walk into someone's shoes, we don't know. And none of us, like you said, Christine, are perfect. We all have a story. We all have a skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to keep going backwards in life and not forward, we're never going to obtain our powerful potential and purpose. And that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christine, again, I want to thank you. I'm going to put up your email. This is how did I spell that correctly?
Yes, you did. Perfect. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're looking for a midlife transition coach, reach out to Christine. Her website isn't complete yet, so we didn't want to put it up there while she's in a revamp mode, but you can reach out to her or find her on Facebook and let her know even what you thought about her story today, her perspective on life. So drop a comment below. Give her some love right now, okay? And if you have questions and you're on the replay, please drop a question down below and we will come in. Christine will be checking. We'll come back in and we will answer. Okay. So we are so glad to have you here today. I hope that you today shift the perspective on your own personal life. And you never know, your purpose may be a whole lot bigger than you ever thought it was. Right, Christine?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say, we got another comment here. Let's see. Brenda says, love. She's sending you love.
Thank you.
So here again is Christine. I'm going to take you off camera for a moment, Christine. So just hang out in the studio back there, and I'm going to just give some last words to our audience here, okay? And thank you again. So I want to thank you all for joining in today or on the replay to meet one of our co-authors of our book, Women Standing Strong Together, coming out in December. But I really want to thank you for having the courage in life to stand up, to be authentic and true, to share your story. And if you're looking for a platform to share your story, a short story, then myself and my business partner, Powerful Potential and Purpose is a publishing company, and we have packages for you so that you can stand on that platform. And you know what? It gives you credibility. It makes you an author when you hold that book for the first time. I know how I felt the very first time. It's like, oh my God, you shake, you have joy, you have all sorts of things happening for you, right? And it also presents opportunities for you to get other speaking engagements or other clients. So it is a wonderful platform to build your business. So if you're interested in being published by Powerful Potential and Purpose, and you have a short story or story that is along the lines of this and the spiritual growth, okay, shifting perspective for people, helping people transform, then there's my email, Gloria Coppola. Get in touch with me, and I look forward to hearing from you. God bless you all. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.